you guys like the new intro? We're going to try a new one every week until we find one we like. Welcome to Thursday Nights with the Gabbing Gonks. Thank you guys for being here. I'll say this throughout the show. We are using new software. If the volume's not right, if the image don't look right, tell us and we'll make a change. We appreciate the feedback as we, try to figure out life and all the technology around us. I am here with my two wonderful co-hosts. We have Jimmy from Star Wars on High, and of course we have Ben, our wise master from Star Wars Timeline. Guys, how is it going? How has this new year been off, starting and rolling? We're now in the second week of January. How's it going?
Not too bad. We've got more Star Wars.
I got sick again. Jimmy got sick to start off the new year.
If you guys remember last Thursday, I was talking about, I had a bit of a sore throat, wasn't feeling too well, and sure enough, the next morning I had to call into work. I'm still trying to get over it. Thing about me is I don't get sick often, so when I do, it lasts forever. It's great. It's awesome. Hey, it's fun for this whole family.
That's right. But at least you're back for this.
We're back. We got some fun things coming. We got some fun videos going to be coming out soon that I've been promising for a while. I think everyone's going to enjoy.
Yeah, we are. It's interesting because as we talked about last week, as we ended the stream, for those who tuned in, there's a lot of Star Wars and more very close on the horizon as we're in the middle of a new whole series being launched. And it could be a lot to cover, from books to comics to shows to video games. There's so much on the plate. Sometimes you just can't fit it all in. And that's hard for me, and I'm sure for Jimmy as well. It's like you want to get it, you want to read it all, but you're busy with work, you're sick, A, B, and C, you name it. So you got to remind ourselves sometimes.
And it's such a shame, too, because we want to cover it. We just have to work for a living.
Who's got how dare we have to do that?
Yeah, right.
But
one day.
That's right. It's a challenge for sure to juggle all of it. But we're happy you're spending your Thursday night with us because we had a new episode of Bad Batch come out last night. And I love being able to come on here with you guys after the episode premieres and talk about it kind of real time, because Jimmy watches it during his workday. I come home, watch it after work, put my review out. Ben watched it a little bit late. So I don't get to talk to these guys really about their opinions until right now. So when we have our conversations, you guys are witnessing our live, but literally our first time engaging with each other on this topic.
Yeah, basically, I get to talk to Josh, and I'm typically the first one that sees it, and then I just get to text Josh and say, "Hey, watch this," and then I just have to wait.
Yeah, and then
I'm actually one day behind. I literally was like catching up with my projects for work. Yeah, you know what? I gotta catch it. We're having a stream today. I gotta know what's going on, and I literally caught it just a couple hours ago.
That is going to be so much fun to talk about it real time as you process through it. Just a heads up, there will be some spoilers throughout. Again, this episode, one thing I want to say, this episode, there is some moments that could be spoiled for you, I guess. But to me, this episode is a lot more about just experiencing it. It's the atmosphere. It's the tension. Go watch it. Just hearing plot points is not going to do this any justice. It really isn't, because the strength of this episode is in its execution, in its weight. And so I highly recommend that you go watch it before you watch our review and our discussion here. But there will be spoilers ahead, so be warned. And yes, Ben is showing off. Let's see what we got here. A new figure from the...
This was actually a present from one of my viewers. He sent it to me via... Like as a little special. I'm like, my boy Lando. I do have the shirt, but this is my very first Lando figure. Out of these 6-inch figures, I gotta say this is probably one of the best that has the likeness. So little Lando Calrissian interlude. Yeah. Speaking of, guys, just a random off-topic question. If we can interrupt our program just for a second there.
Hit me with it.
We know that Lando did show up in Rebels. Is there room for him in the Bad Batch? What do you guys think?
I was thinking about that too, because right when the first 2 episodes came out last week, I always say I'm going to stay off Twitter to avoid spoilers, and somehow I can manage to just scroll for hours and not see any spoilers. And even then, I try to tempt myself. So I saw Wikipedia, they tweeted out, they're like, "Hey, no spoilers, but what did you guys think of this episode?" And I was just seeing just some initial reactions. And one of them that I saw was just it was great. It was nonstop action for 2 episodes. And somewhere in there, someone said Han Solo. And I was like, okay, if you're going to tell me Han shows up in this first episode, that will blow my mind for a few reasons. But it got me thinking. I was like, I mean, I guess it would kind of make sense. Maybe around this time, I think he is in the Imperial Academy. I want to say this is roughly before Solo.
Yeah, I would say so.
So to your point, could Lando show up too? I mean, why not? I don't know how significant or what they would do, but
both Lando and Han are 10 years senior, roughly speaking, to Luke and Leia, so they're probably very active in the galaxy. I was just wondering to myself.
Yeah.
No, I mean, fair points. Yeah, I always got to follow.
Where are they? Where are they in these moments? Yeah. Well, let's talk about episode 3. I struggle a little bit here as I tee us off here, and I'll quickly pass it around the triangle. And I said this during Bad Batch last year and in Andor as well, where I'm going to be repeating myself in a lot of the compliments because the strengths of the show are continuing from episode to episode. And I just have to say, like, as my just first comment, and then I'll pass it on to Ben, who hasn't really had a chance to give his opinion yet at all. This episode, the level of execution of score and visuals are just like as good as it's been. It's good as it gets for Star Wars animation up to this point. I don't think there's been an episode that's looked better. And I'm not just talking about like the actual quality of animation. I'm also talking about the cinematography, the shots, the framing. There was some really, really technically just fantastic moments here. And so this is how far we've come from season 1 of the Clone Wars till now. It is insane how good they've gotten at executing these episodes. So I'll talk more about the episode, the plot, the details, etc., whatever. Let's put that on to Ben, who just got fresh from watching it. And Ben, why don't you tell us what you think about the episode? Because I don't even know what your thoughts are on episode 3, The Solitary Clone.
Guys, the moment I finished it, I could barely contain myself. You know what? I got to save it all for the channel. And it's one of those moments when you watch something, you pretty much can anticipate what the general reaction is going to be. Obviously, not every single person on Earth is going to love it, but you sort of feel where the tides will generally lead, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And as I'm watching this, as you mentioned earlier, it just shows how evolved Dave Filoni and the crew have become over these decades, right? All the way back from the Clone Wars to this most recent show, where everything is now so streamlined and perfected, and all the kinks are just thrown out. It's absolute perfection of storytelling, action, the music, the visual, the sonic experience. Everything works coherently. If you're in, for Star Wars because you enjoy action, you got that. If you're the person who enjoys storytelling, you got that. If you're the person who does nothing but just like Spotify Star Wars, favorite songs all day long,
you
got it. It's a perfect illustration of how no matter what you're coming to get, it's the full toolbox. It got everything.
And what was so impactful to me before we pass it over to Jimmy is I started seeing the reaction online. No, didn't see any spoilers, but I saw people saying like, this episode is insane. This episode, oh my goodness, wow. And so originally in my framing, I'm like, okay, there must be some sort of like big character moment, maybe some cameo, maybe some huge action set piece that people are hyped about. And that's not what this episode was. It had those, to your point, it had some great action, had some great moments, but it was a very somber, weighty, very focused character episode, really only focus on 2 characters. And it was not what you might think of a crowd pleaser. It wasn't like this, crowd pleaser episode. Like, oh yeah, we got Lando showing up and we got Hondo and oh my gosh, it's everything we've ever wanted. It was like, oh wow, this is a really dark, gritty, emotional episode. And it still had such a fan reaction. You could tell the execution was just top notch. What did you think, Jimmy, before we dive into details? What was your thoughts on episode 3?
I'm glad you mentioned the crowd pleaser thing, because I was going to bring that up, because I know I mentioned last week. I saw one comment saying the first 2 episodes were I can't remember the word they used, but basically like amateurish for whatever reason. And it got me thinking. I was like, why is that your initial thought? Like, I mean, like, sure, if you just don't like it, that's fine. But like, some people say this and they're like expecting, 7 cameos and them to ride a Star Destroyer into the ground. I'm like, it's the opening of a new season. It's not going to be groundbreaking. And then as I sit there and say, like, we're all saying the same thing, this episode was insane. And then I'm coming to realize, insane means a lot of things. It's not just like one exact meaning. If I say this episode is insane because the action was out of this world, Ben could say this episode's insane because the storytelling was just on par with what he wants. So, but I think we can all agree that, yeah, this episode is insane because it is so detail oriented and heavy and emotional and pretty much, story driven. Like, this felt like such a necessary episode. Just to see, like, because it's been, I think we've established it's been about a year between seasons 1 and 2. So just to see like what Crosshair's just been doing by himself. He doesn't have what was considered a family even then. Like, he didn't really seem to enjoy being with them to begin with. But I guess that's just like his character trait, so seeing him here and just, he's like, so who am I going to be leading? They're like, you're not doing that. You kidding me? It's just really interesting to see that, we can call these episodes insane, but it all has to do with the tone that carried the episode. That's the part that's insane, not who shows up, not the act. It's what we get out of it.
I will say one thing that, the only negative, and I say that this is a joke, everyone to know, but the negative I thought when I saw it was like, wow, how does the rest of the season like match up? Like, did we peak too early? You know what I mean? Like, sometimes you're like, oh my goodness, like we just set the bar so high. Almost any episode will be a drop off because it's like, this one's so good. Like Scott said earlier, it's one of the best episodes of animated Star Wars. And I agree, because one thing we talked about it last week. We've talked about it in episodes past. We talked about with Tales of the Jedi. There's a maturity here. There's a respect for the audience that, animation is just a medium for the story. It is not a child's show. Not that a child can't watch it. Of course they can. But it is not handled like a child show. It's handled like a mature project for all ages.
TVMA.
So let's just take a step back and talk about what, from the beginning, what started working for me immediately. When it comes to visuals, maybe one of you Star Wars experts who's a little smarter than I am can tell me the exact location. But we see the clone facility on Coruscant, correct? Does anyone know what that building is called? I don't know what that thing is called. But they lean in. What's up?
Clone facility on Coruscant?
Is that were we on Coruscant at the opening?
I was questioning whether it was Coruscant or not. It was so unfamiliar looking.
Yeah, because like when Rampart City and the windows in the background looked like Coruscant, so I just was kind of guessing.
I completely forgot that part existed already. Jesus, I need to watch it again. Yeah, but fair question. I don't know.
So let's just pretend it's some sort of city, planet, empire controlled center of power. The architecture in the facility, it had clone statues. It reminded me of like the old Republic games where they have like the Sith like statues, and they have this background here with this template. This, like, I don't know if it's some sort of clone creed, but like this was major vibes of like the old Republic. It's what it reminds me of when you're on Korriban. So anyway, that aside, the visuals are just like, oh my gosh, this is like so interesting, so fascinating to look at. And we see what is left of the clones, and it's like reminiscent of what we've seen in the Clone Wars, where the clones are eating together in the cafeteria. But it's not quite right. There's an offness to it. And we see Crosshair, who literally cannot find a table to sit at the lunchroom.
That
isolated totally. It's sad. It was kind of sad.
I was like, even though I was like, you're kind of an ass, but I still like, don't treat them, don't make it worse,
Totally isolated.
Also found it very interesting that it's like they're starting to like segregate the clones in the army. They're keeping their armor, and then all the recruits are getting the TK armor.
Yeah.
So like you can tell what's what. And I'm like,
it's true.
This is such an interesting choice.
And I really should, to your point, Jimmy, and that this is where you're right. I think the episode technically opened up on Desix, where it showed kind of the planet, and then it went to the clone facility on Coruscant. But regardless, the design of Desix was also phenomenal. It had this. It gave. This is maybe not the best comparison, but it very much reminded me of the lighting of Revenge of the Sith. We had this reddish yellow sky of like Mustafar almost, and it had that very somber tone.
It was constantly like at dusk.
Exactly, like permadusk, yeah. And it is this and this is what really stuck out about this episode. It twisted the formula. it took the Clone Wars formula, it twisted on its head, where we used to watch our clone squads go to these separatist holdouts and these separatist planets controlled by droids and try to liberate them or take over. And those are the good guys. And then in this episode, it's flipped. The separatists with their droids are the good guys. They're the ones holding out from this evil empire. And our clone crew, led by Cody, is the bad guys. And it was such an interesting, like, it was an episode we'd seen before, as a style we've seen before, but on its head. The formula had been reversed. And I thought it was just such a fascinating view on this transition period from the Empire, from the Republic to the Empire. And the way I thought they did that was so fun. It was fun is maybe the wrong word because it was very emotional and dark, but it was such a clever way to do this. We find ourselves with our clone squad specialized, taking out the silly droids, Roger, and it's like we should be cheering for the Roger. We should be cheering for those guys.
Yeah,
that I thought was so cool. Such a fun way to do that.
I also wanted to kind of bridge I'm going to jump just a tiny bit ahead and kind of touch upon the story, but also talk about the visuals. I thought that the naming of the episode was so appropriate, the solitary clone, because, Star Wars fandom has this syndrome. We try to identify and find meaning and symbolism in everything. The credits roll. Oh, it's so symbolic. This letter is all the way in the right over there. You know what I mean? Like we take it too far sometimes. But here, it doesn't take much to recognize there is so much visual cues put in there for the audience to look at and to interpret in different ways. And like you said earlier, Josh, taking the Star Wars, the familiar iconic iconography, and spinning it on its head, the stuff that we revered from the Clone Wars. What really struck me about this episode, just one particular image, that's huge mural, the wall where you see the Arabash, I think, but it's basically, it looks like the names of all the clones that sacrificed themselves for this new empire. And then you see, just getting into the story just a tiny bit here, you see Crosshair over here, and you see the other clone. What's his name?
Cody,
right? And Cody over here, and it kind of makes you question who is the solitary clone in this episode, because it keeps throwing you and showing you these two examples of one clone who is questioning his orders, and another one who's so far, beneath the ground. Yeah, that's exactly the image I'm looking for. He's so fallen, and he's so irredeemable. And he's now making the choices that he doesn't fully comprehend. And now they're catching up with him like they did at the end of this episode. So from the visual standpoint, this episode is so multifaceted and gives you so many different ways to take a stab at it. It'll make sense whichever way you try to interpret it. And I felt that this is just the cherry on top. This is where Star Wars has matured and elevated itself to a new degree in this particular episode. Forget all the amazing action, forget all the visual, amazing visuals and cinematography. It's just when you take something so simple like this piece of wall and you're giving me a story without chewing and regurgitating it and, shoving it down my throat, like, this is what it's supposed to be. No. Take a moment there and absorb this material. Take this image and see how it makes you feel.
And I want to tag on to that too, because I like how you said, like, we try to find symbolism in everything, and people are always trying to like decipher everything they see. I think this wall is an exact example of they knew what would happen, because everyone's like, there's got to be a billion Easter eggs in there, and everyone has gone through and started translating, and it's just gibberish.
Yeah, there's another. Yeah,
like they've like truly they just threw Arborish all over that wall, thinking, it looks like names. No, it's just complete gibberish.
Yeah, the eagle
eye, which I think is fair. It's like he's like, honestly, it would have taken forever to probably think up everything to actually type out in this scene here.
Well, but it works, right?
Yeah.
Like, look at it, and it resonates. Something about it activates those brain cells. And you're like,
exactly.
Yeah, hold on a second. Pause.
And I actually really love to the fact that it's like if it did have Easter eggs, which would have been fun. It also, in a way, kind of cheapens this moment, because it's like, hey, over there it says Bill, like Billy was here. It's like, this. It's like, no, there's mystery here. There's mystery on this wall. I kind of like that. There's mystery for us to think about. It is a fantastic shot. It's the background for today's episode because it just looks so.
But to make
so
that
darn
my
good.
wallpaper on my my work computer.
Oh, it's great. I think I changed it to the header. I think I made my my Twitter. This is the header on it. But
Nice.
regardless, it's a fantastic shot. But Cody, so let's just go back to one thing about Crosshair though. Is we've talked about him being totally isolated, and we're actually feeling kind of bad for him. Yeah, we find out like he was just stuck on Camino for like 32 days.
Yeah,
just by himself, just surviving
rotations.
Yeah, and what's interesting about that is Crosshair has this interesting arc he's going through, where he is completely he's like doubled down. He's like he is literally being so stubborn almost. He's harming himself. Like he didn't go with his crew who he could have. He's like, no, I'm gonna sit here for 32 days, to this empire who really hasn't given me any love or respect because it's like what we do. This is what I do. This is what good soldiers do, and you guys are wrong. And
I really think that Crosshair may be like one of the most complex Star Wars characters we've ever gotten because of stuff like that. Because like he doesn't really say much. We never really know what's going on in his head. He keeps such a straight face.
Yep.
But it's these like little hinted moments where there's stuff like that where he's like, yeah, he could have left with the rest of them after Camino fell and like took them back. He got his chip removed, but it's like almost as if he's trying to brainwash himself into thinking, no, I'm doing the right thing. I shouldn't question it. Whatever they say is right is kind of what I'm getting at. Maybe that's completely wrong, which most of my theories are. Surprise, surprise. But it's like everyone was just like, good soldiers follow orders. And he kind of showed that. They got taken out. He's like, no, I still think we should do that. It's like,
and he's the voice acting, the performance is so on point that he almost reaches out to the viewer of how broken he is inside. And I agree with you, Jim. I think the character works really, really well because he doesn't have many words. He still emotes. He still responds to a situation that just completely puts an episode on hold. Oh my God, did this just happen? This is crazy. At one point, I thought I'm watching not Star Wars, but an episode from Warhammer 40K. I'm like, I'm heavy into its lore right now. I'm watching a lot of videos. I swear to you guys, the combination of music and visuals here and what is happening in the episode, I'm like, this is so dark, man. This is a kid's show no longer. Yeah. Something is really going on here.
It's very dark. The character of Crosshair is interesting because, to your point, Jimmy, is he like, is the reason he's acting the way he is because he's like, okay, life is hard, life is complicated. Why was I even made? Why am I a clone? Why am I here? Like, the only way I can cope with that if it's just like, I follow orders. I was made to follow orders. I don't make the decisions. I don't worry about the morality. I do what I'm told. That's what I was born to do. And is that how he kind of copes with
I have a feeling that like Crosshair is secretly the character with like the super heart of gold and has like overflowing emotions, So he's just like, well, if I stay here, I'm not being hunted 24/7, and I prefer that feeling,
Yeah, and that's the thing. What I love, and maybe they will. I assume at some point they'll give us more insight into Crosshair's motivation. But the way I'm telling myself, it's like, okay, this is he's a clone born for war. This is how he's just decided to navigate life. It's hard. It's complicated. There's moral quandaries between the separatists and the change. And he's just like, I'm a soldier. I follow orders. That's what I was born to do. I don't question that. And if you think about this, like, I'm going to take it a level too deep because I don't think this is where they're going. But if you think about like the reality of a clone, it's like I was born and genetically modified to age quickly, to just be subjugated to war, to killing and to murder and to death. Like, that's my entire existence. Like, Star Wars doesn't ever really talk about that per se.
Yeah. Well, there's a few moments like that where they had a lot of clones that were like, yeah, we kind of question the whole thing too, because if it wasn't for the war, none of us would exist.
Yeah, that's true. No, that's true. No, that's fair. And then I think...
I don't think it's touched on as much, though. I think we could get some real psychological trauma out of something like that.
It's almost like... I think it's like we're almost getting that through Crosshair for the first time. Like, this is what he's just coping with. He doesn't know what to do. He's just there. He's locked in. Like, that's what I have to do. I follow orders. And Rampart's just, using him, basically abusing him.
Rampart's shaping up to be a really good character.
He's just kind of a jerk, and Crosshair's like, it's what I do. Like, I don't care. Like, I'm detaching myself.
Rampart's gonna go out the same way he took out that clone in the first episode. Or the second episode. He's gonna go out that same way. Just like him, General Hux. They're all just gonna get just bang.
When they all get grinded through this imperial machine and realize, even though they were holding these positions of power yesterday, that tomorrow they mean nothing, and they just all swept beneath the Emperor's feet because they're nobodies. They're here. The Empire squeezes every last bit of your obedience and your loyalty and just beats you into submission. And tomorrow you're nothing. Yeah, I can totally see that.
Because like he's trying to get higher in the ranks. You can already tell that. You know, he's got that demeanor to him. He's wanting to be like Tarkin or Krennic and stuff like that. And
he's a suck up. You could tell that.
Yeah, and it's just not going to end well for him. But
he's serial.
Yeah, it's serial. I wanna draw some attention to the comments because people are talking about a good topic, the droidicas.
Yeah.
There were a few times where like I have found Star Wars characters just like really cool and awesome and not really scary. And then there were some scenes that changed that for me. Like the one that stuck out the most was Darth Vader's hallway scene in Rogue One. I was like, I'm terrified of you now.
I'm scared. Yeah.
Yeah. These droidica scenes. And I always thought droidicas were awesome.
One criticism I had with the prequels when they were coming out in theaters, obviously when a blockbuster movie comes out, you have a whole marketing campaign and you have a bunch of choice. When you have a blockbuster movies, that's what kids enjoy.
Yep.
But when I went to see it, one detriment to me was personally when the droids and even droidecas, they felt like action figures. They never felt threatening, especially in Phantom Menace. They kind of get upgraded and feel more intimidating in the Attack of the Clones. When they have that final battle on Geonosis, things are really getting a little bit more greedy. And then, of course, in the Revenge of the Sith, we get even more.
Yeah.
But in this episode, they felt like machines of war. They felt like we're not playing around in this episode. Even a couple of scenes with, Roger droids, and they even high-five each other, which is a silly moment.
That was great. I loved that.
It was such a great and deliberate, punctuation mark in the rest of the episode where you kind of sort of almost want to feel that you want that relief, that moment of comedic relief, but you're realizing this episode is not going to give you that. Yeah. And it's almost there to put a contrast on the rest of the events in the episode. You're sitting there. I kind of want to laugh, but man, this is not funny. This is so dark. This is really it was a very emotional moment for me.
And it's so interesting too, because, you watch it and we've seen droidicas in all different forms from games, TV, comics, books, what have you. We know they're dangerous. We know what makes them really difficult to destroy, but we never had any of those problems in Clone Wars or the one time we see them in Rebels or even in the prequel trilogy. It's always, I got a lightsaber, I'll just deflect it, all that. Yeah. Hey, we learned this trick, slowly roll the detonator into their shield and it destroys them. They never really had any problems. This felt like a Dark Souls game when it just rolled up and I was just like, they threw the thermal detonator, it just bounced off, and I'm like, yeah.
I would think in tight spaces, a droideca would be terrifying for a clone. What are you going to do? You're so isolated. But to take us, back just a half step, I wanted to share this shot here of Desix. It's such a cool design. It's such a gorgeous outpost we have here, and it seems like it's a hostile planet to live on. There's some sort of mining or farming going on. It doesn't look like we're in a happy-go-lucky village. This looks like a challenging, harsh environment to live in. And what's interesting here is they reference, and I'm forgetting the exact verbiage, so you guys might be able to help me, where it's Dooku. They talk about Dooku again, which is kind of funny. He came up in this episode too. And it's Dooku had started to see the flaws of the Empire, I believe is kind of what he had alluded to it. Which was kind of interesting that Dooku got name dropped again in the first 2 episodes. But this planet was a separatist planet, right? This was a separatist group who did not want to join the Empire either. And I love that we saw that because it makes total sense. It doesn't make sense in any way that all the separatists would have been yeah, Galactic Empire, we're in. No, it goes against the entire thing they were fighting against in the Clone Wars. And so it's cool to see these once allied planets allied with the bad guys are now just totally getting picked off and their planets are being kind of overrun, but gorgeous design, just an absolutely fantastic looking.
There's one more, there's a scene very similar to that I'm trying to find, but agree. Yeah. Just through and through the cinematography has just been on par. Here it is. If I can get a screen cap of this, I will. Keep talking.
Well, I was going to say, I said it in my review, my favorite shot of the episode was later in the episode. They show this exact city. It's darker red. and they have a Star Destroyer up here, like in a red cloud. It's just insane. It's just a fantastic.
What I really like about this shot is it sort of reminded me of the Clone Wars Christophsis. We have, I think, 2-episode arc or 3-episode. I think it was 2-episode arc. And the moment you see Christophsis, all the architecture, the buildings, and of course there's a major action happening there and a fight for the planet. But the established panoramic shot, it already gave you such a great sense of history. There's something about this place. And same here, it's not just a beautiful canvas for you to look at. When you look at that architecture, it almost looks like an all-seeing eye, like the eye of Palpatine gazing down on you, or a door key knob or something like this. There's it just gives you that ominous look that you're not supposed to be there. Like, once again, like you mentioned, even the clouds, right, and the Star Destroyer, it's such an oppressive mood there.
It is.
Even in a shot like this, there's storytelling happening.
It's such a perfect coincidence that was the exact scene I was grabbing when you were like, "Oh, there's this one scene." I was like, "Don't be what I." But
it's the best shot. It's such a good shot.
That scene popped up right toward the end of the episode. And I was sitting in my car and I was just like, "Oh yeah."
It's such a good shot. It reminds me of in the season finale of season 1 where they go to Camino and it zooms out and there's these Star Destroyers sitting there with the lightning as they then take it down.
Oh, that scene insane.
They've played with that a couple times now. It's a great shot. Let's talk about, we haven't really spent a lot of time, which is a testament, I think, to the quality of this episode. We haven't spent a lot of time talking about the fact that there's a major character who's in this episode, which is Cody, right? There's an absolutely major kind of return here. And the first thing I loved about this, to stick with the visuals just real quick, is what was once this bright, vibrant yellow armor on Cody has been replaced with this gray, drab, lifeless kind of look of the Empire. A great looking, that being said, it is a great looking set of armor here. These guys looked absolutely awesome together. But it's interesting how they made that change, right? Cody's not yellow anymore. He is just grayed out. No individuality anymore with the clones. But Cody, as we kind of alluded to at the beginning, is going through his own arc here. It's him questioning his beliefs, questioning the choices he's made, the mistakes he might have made, going against his programming, which I think is really big. He is, by the end of the episode, we find out he leaves after an unfortunate encounter in this episode. He's out. He runs away. Which is a really fascinating turn for the character, right? It's such a how far he's fallen from what we saw in Revenge of the Sith, famously betraying Obi-Wan till now.
I hate my brain because it just thinks of stuff, and now I have to ruin it for you guys too. Just because you're talking about how the color faded, they got rid of all the color for the Empire, and he's wearing gray now, and I was like, oh, that's kind of funny. You've got Crosshair, who has just gone completely evil, and he's wearing pretty much alpha set armor for Death Troopers. You're not going to convince me otherwise. You had Cody, who had all this color, and now he's all white and gray. You've got the dark clone. You've got a light clone. He fell from the light, but now he's a gray clone.
Yeah,
because he went AWOL.
He left.
Let the record show I hate the theory of gray Jedis. Anyway,
we have our first.
The color schemes are important, right? To
they are.
I definitely think the color schemes are important. Yeah, and I just love the balance between these, powerful light, powerful dark. And
what I really like. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, that's just all I was gonna say.
What I really liked about this shot, it was just the moment of just that badassery where you kind of shelf the deeper meaning of Star Wars for a second. You just enjoy it for the thrill of it. When they two go at it versus the droids, I was back in my Clone Wars seat when the first season originally. I was on board from the first season when it aired, man. I fell in love with it right away.
Yeah.
And when I was watching this, it's the boys, back on track. They're backing each other up. But then throughout the action sequence, you're noticing they don't act the same. They don't respond to the situations the same. And of course, the climatic emotional high of this episode, also, they're completely two opposites. And that's the tragedy of it. Two brothers who fought side by side are no longer the same. The straight line divides right between them, and that's the Empire.
And I find it really interesting too to match up Crosshair with Cody, because they have had no interaction up until this point
that we've seen.
Yeah, well, very true. But yeah, like on screen, like they just had no interaction, and suddenly, like this is the duo, and everyone's just on board for Cody and Crosshair. I'm like, this is such. No one expected this, and we're just all on board for it. It's fascinating. It's fascinating.
To Ben's point, Crosshair, like little OP. Like I will tell you, of all of the Bad Batch, Crosshair definitely seems to get the most done. And the ranged weapon usage is certainly powerful in these situations. He absolutely
over 9,000.
Yeah, I know the flipping the mirror like 65 headshot combo he pulled with Cody was quite impressive. But then we lead after the action, outside the action, which we agree was really good. I'll just talk about this kind of really end climactic moment is where, you know, Cody makes an appeal to this mayor to like, hey, like we don't have to have violence, let's put it down. Like almost in a way, Cody is almost like kind of hoping that's true. Like he's kind of hoping like the Empire is going to be good for you, because you see as they're going through the town, like a little family comes out and he's like, hey, don't worry, we're here to help you. And they're like, the heck, like get out of here, you know, like what are you talking about, like get us out of here. And you see him kind of questioning like, oh man, we used to be the good guys, we used to come and liberate people, we used to come and help, and like now people are like afraid of us. And then in the end, ultimately he offers peace. The Imperial officer is like, nah, kill him, and Crosshair's like, sounds good to me, boom, you know. And Cody's like, oh man, like this isn't it anymore. I'm not this guy. Like, this is not what we signed up for. And is gone. And I'm sure he will come up again. I highly suspect we will see Cody again. I think it'd be almost more powerful if we just didn't know what happened to Cody, but I think he'll make another appearance in the season.
I really think he's going to die.
That'd be very, I mean, depending on how they do it, I think it could be very powerful. Like he left the Empire and paid the ultimate price, but made the right turn.
I think it's going to be like a save yourself kind of thing. Like he's going to stay behind to save the batch or something. I don't know.
I couldn't help but feel like that very, you know, Fahrenheit 451 novel kind of like dystopian future feeling, where when they said that, you know, he went AWOL, it almost sounded like that's it. He's no more. He's taken away. Like
that's true. Yeah.
Like if you're not following rules, you know, word by word, they basically just take you away.
You know, that's a fair point.
It is. I mean, that would be so dark. That'd make the episode even darker.
For a second, like, we're not going to see him anymore. Probably he's done.
That would be so dark.
And you know, that's interesting because all of the scenes of Cody we got in the trailer were in this episode.
That's true.
Is that confirmed? You sure?
Well, that we've seen so far. The trailers.
Everything from the trailers we've seen, all of the scenes of Cody in the trailer came from this episode.
Yep.
Okay.
So cool. Maybe.
Good call up, Ben. That would be really a turn, man. That would be quite.
I mean, that's the sense I got. I wasn't even like just overanalyzing it. I was like, the moment that they said he went AWOL, like, something happened to him. And you know, when that shot zooms out on Rampart, I'm like, oh man, this cold bastard. Like,
It's a good point.
Yeah,
it's a good point.
Very good point.
I will say, he didn't kill him like we told him, so we killed him. Yeah, go ahead, Jimmy.
Oh no, I was like, that's totally like just crazy that I didn't think of that, and like it just makes so much sense. But reeling it back a little bit, I was going to say, like, can we just talk about like the best scene in this entire episode? Arguably, the stairwell fight.
Yeah, it's crazy. I know. It's so.
That was the equivalent to Daredevil's hallway scene.
There you
go. Like shooting off the little like mirrors. That was just like dope as hell. But I thought Cody was gonna eat it on the stairwell. Like when he got shot, I was like,
I thought he was gonna die there.
Where to get shot?
And dude, it's just so simple. You don't have to go overboard with the amount of action that you have. It's like, for example, I'm sorry guys, I keep doing it, but I can't help myself. You know, the intro scenes of the Revenge of the Sith. It's so busy on screen. There's so many starships and so many things going on. It's so big. Like, you don't need all of that to be impressive. And I really felt that particular scene lacked in gritness and that warlike feel. When you're in this hallway scene, it's not an extravagant scene. They just run around. They have a couple of shoots out along the way. They're very tactical about what they're doing. They're using cover, and they run up the room to their final destination. But the way that it's executed, you're right there. I almost felt like maybe it's the camera angles or combination of things where you feel like you're behind the shoulders of one of these stormtroopers and you're backing them up as a viewer. Like, oh my God, you root for them for a second. You want them to do it. You forget the fact that they're rocking these Imperial armors, because they're being led by 2 clones, former heroes of the Republic.
Yep. I love the way they play with that throughout the episode, just the turn on the formula.
Yeah,
it's just fantastic. And what I is a big takeaway from the episode is in the first season, with Crosshair, you're like, Crosshair, you are just the worst. Like, we all hate you, Crosshair. And in this episode, when we see this like really just broken Crosshair, I mean, he's like sitting there eating, and they're like, Crosshair, come to the principal's office. Crosshair, come to the principal's office.
9904.
Yeah,
And
like
that
come to the
happened
principal.
twice. I was like, bro, I'd be so pissed if every
like-
morning I was interrupted during breakfast.
And he's like, they don't. And what's really interesting is like, the Empire isn't even glorifying him. They're not like, oh, we have our super soldier, take out that badge. They're kind of like, you suck. They're like, they're like,
he's expendable. Even though, they're like, he's like the one guy in Star Wars that does trick shots. I love it.
But he doesn't question. He doesn't revolt yet. And it's actually making the character like so much more interesting to me as we go into the second season. Like, I am becoming a big Crosshair. I'm very excited to see how the arc plays out.
Same.
I'm very excited.
I'm becoming a Crosshair stan. It's weird. Even though the dude is still like pure evil.
Well, but it's so, but like in this, what this episode showed me, at least, and this is maybe just me, being inconsistent, but it's like he's not really getting any benefit of staying with the Empire. There's no glorification. There's no rising a position. There's no leadership. There's no glory. It's just like service, miserable. Like, this is just my existence. There's nothing else we do but follow orders. Like, this is my life. Just very nihilistic, very like not much outlook. And it's like, okay, like now you didn't go this way for your own power. You didn't go this way for your own gain. You did it because like this is just the way you're living life. And that has kind of flipped my view on him from like this kind of like warped, selfish individual to like this much more tragic character. He's just very tragic. In a way I didn't feel in season 1 as much. And maybe I did. Maybe it's a continuation of that arc. But it's a testament to the writers to be like, there's this really annoying character who like you really didn't like. Like, you're starting to see it, don't you? You see what his life, you see the existence, you see what he's kind of suffering through. And kudos. I am now very excited to see Crosshair throughout the season, and hopefully they give him a really satisfying ending to his arc, because he's got some of the most interesting storytelling going on right now for me.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And I want to go completely off the rails here because I just remembered it, and I was going to mention it last week, but I didn't. Can we talk about how great it was that we got AZ working in Sid's cantina?
Oh,
the Kaminoan droid.
Yeah, that's true.
I just remember that. I was like, because I thought he didn't make it out, and I was like, oh, he's working at the bar. This is amazing.
Yeah, I noticed him too.
My name is AZ3740. Yeah, we know.
What I like about that, just compared to episode 1 and 2, they went the direction of like, okay, we're going to open the show up and we're going to show you the full crew and no Crosshair, and then Crosshair by himself. And it's like,
here's the full crew doing crazy stuff, and they're having a great time.
It was kind of like a fun adventure in the jungle.
Here's reality.
Yeah. It was like kind of a more upbeat, like adventure. The crew's on an adventure to save the galaxy, and like, how do we function in this? And it's like you go over to Crosshair, and he's just like,
I am a prisoner.
Yeah, like just the most morbid. And I can't really play a lot of like, we'll get demonetized. I'm not going to play moments, but the score in this episode was so impactful.
Through Warhammer 40K. It belongs. I know they're working on developing a show now, and Henry Cavill is behind it because he's a huge tabletop gamer.
Yep.
But if I were to fan order the genre of music, it's that.
Yeah,
it's exactly this episode.
Yeah, it is. It's
so grim dark. Like, it didn't feel like you're watching space fantasy. It feels like you're watching like a science fiction horror story.
Kevin Kiner, another level of composer.
And I will tell you, like, we've been spoiled recently because I think about the Dooku Tales of the Jedi episodes. Those were scored just insane.
Phenomenal.
Like, those 3 episodes are just insane. And it's like we're right back in it. And this episode reminded me of those Dooku episodes a little bit, where it's like that very mature, grim animation. Like, there is no heroes. The good guy wins. It's just like, no, this was the Clone Wars. This was war. Like, this is what was happening. These characters were like, they weren't getting their happy endings. They were losing loved ones. They were dying out there. And I love that, like, Star Wars is exposing that through Andor, now through these animated shows. And it's like, and I said it in my review, I said it a lot during Andor. This, for me personally, not for everyone, I'm sure, it enhances the situation of the entire original trilogy for me, because like this was what it was at stake. Like, this is why Anakin's fall was so tragic. This is what the galaxy fell into. This is why Luke's triumph was so important. This is why Vader's eventual turn at the end was such a big deal. It's because these were the prices that were being paid. Lives were being lost. It was gritty. It was dark. It wasn't just like, hey, a boy has magic powers and becomes the best Jedi ever, and he beats the big evil guy in a chair. It's like, no, like people were subjugated to slave camps and were being overrun. Like it wasn't just like this fun, like hero's tale. Like there was
an underground cartel drug issue.
Yeah, it's like one thing to know, it's another thing to like experience and live in that world. And I give them a lot of kudos. Like I want them to get out of the Skywalker saga, but through things like Andor and through things like the Bad Batch and Tales of the Jedi, it's like, man, you are really enhancing that prequel transition. Like, man, this era between prequels and original is like really getting fleshed out in like a very impactful way for me personally. Andor raised the bar for that. And now in animation, we're seeing like, yeah, remember those clones you loved and grew up with, that you spent years of your life watching them go on missions and gain these relationships with them? Like, watch them slowly get killed.
How would you like to watch them die?
It's crazy. I don't know. Like,
and I really like that format where, you know, the Clone Wars almost felt like an anthology of recurring themes and plot lines, where you go from hero to hero, and they all kind of, like you said, expose Star Wars and paint the picture from different angles. You know, how the Separatists feel with what they're doing, how Padme is trying to affect the Senate from this angle. And you sort of follow the tradition in here, because Rebels was a lot more serialized. It felt a lot more like one streamlined story, keep going and going and going. But here we keep flipping the switch. We go from the Bad Batch, we go to the Crosshair. And I hope they introduce other anthology-like characters to center around, to build it once again from all of these different perspectives.
So last thought on as we transition just on a couple other smaller topics for the evening. I know Chad has said it. I know we have said it. So, you know, I won't repeat ourselves again about how we want to see animation in different eras. We want to see it. We want to see it. I will just say in general, though, I greatly hope they never stop with animated Star Wars. I hope 20 years from now, they're still making animated Star Wars. And we had a whole stream dedicated last year to, is animated Star Wars like the best Star Wars we're getting or have gotten? And I just have to say, like, with the Bad Batch through season 1 and so far in season 2, through Tales of the Jedi, through Visions, through the whole original Clone Wars, through Rebels, it's like, man, it's just some insanely high caliber storytelling. And it, unlike the other projects who seem to have mixed opinions, like, you know, Book of Boba Fett, I like less than you guys. Kenobi, Ben like less than us. You know, Andor, you know, but those shows always seem to have kind of mixed fan reaction. Animation, like universally, well, I won't say universally, but largely we're all like, yep, that's good. That's good stuff. Like, we love that. Let's get some more of that.
It's like, what my friend said literally today. I told him, hey, dude, like, he kind of fell off of Star Wars, and he used to be as huge of a fan as we are.
Yeah.
He was like very disillusioned after the Rise of Skywalker. It's like, man, they're changing things so much. Like, I don't care anymore.
Right.
And I told him, you know, like, I'm sort of like his window into what's going on at the moment.
Yep.
And I told him, boy, I know how you like your Tom Clancy novels. I know how you like your hardcore science fiction. He's a huge Dune fan. He loved that. I said, give the Bad Batch a chance. Watch this episode. When you will see the tacticalness, and that's exactly the word I used, tacticalness of this episode, like, tell me you don't like it. And it's like, oh, no. Everything that Dave Filoni puts on, once again, he kind of taps into that same unilateral agreement that we have. Like, whatever Dave Filoni touches, you know, it's awesome.
Especially Dave Filoni animation. He seems so like, his live action, he hasn't as much time. And we'll see what he does with Ahsoka. That's like his first real, like, he's really running that show. But like animation, it's like he could do it in his sleep, man. He pumped out like 6 episodes, like those 3 Dooku episodes. Like, we're not talking about Tales of Jedi right now, but those 3 Dooku episodes, I mean, I don't know, man. Those are some of the best Star Wars that I've ever, like, that I've interacted with. Like, that's as good as it is. He just looks like, give me 15 minutes. I'll just make like an absolute banger. And it's like, oh my gosh, man, this man let him cook. This man is crazy in the animation. The animation side.
Yeah.
Animation side, he's next level.
Before we wrap up here with the Bad Batch, I want to point out, Scott's last comment there where we said we missed talking about Cody's knife skills. This man destroyed a whole droideka with a knife.
Yeah. Very
Can
cool.
I sprinkle that a little bit more?
Yeah.
It brought me also back into my expanded universe days where you are reminded how badass the Mandalorians are, where in post Return of the Jedi, they fight a lot of times with their vibro knives, and one of the accolades that they get is, the little braids that they have of the Wookiee fur is, my man goes out and kills a Wookiee with such a knife. Like, oh my God. And I'm watching it. It's just that recurring little theme. Like, oh my God, this is so badass.
The people in Star Wars who just use like standard knives are the most badass. It's like they're walking around with knives.
One thing I love from Legends was like Mandalorians basically developed shotguns to fight the Jedi because they knew they couldn't parry like all the shots at once. Yeah. It's just parry this, you filthy wizard.
Yeah.
Flamethrower.
That is like one of my favorite bits of Legends lore that I hope they bring back at some point. It's the Mandalorians just using like good old buckshot to try to. I love that. I just love that.
Jedi.
The way that Karen Travis developed Mandalorians is unrivaled. I'm sorry, and it's not nostalgia speaking. It's not like me sticking to the old.
Awesome.
Just something about it was so fleshed out.
You guys know I'm a huge and that segues so well. I love it, Jimmy. You brought up, and Ben, you brought this up and got us back here because Mandalorian is next on the docket. We did get confirmation just a little bit ago, honestly, hours ago, that we are going to get a new Mandalorian season 2 trailer on Monday night.
Oh, nice.
Season 3. I'm sorry. Thank you, Jimmy. We are going to get that on Monday night. This is my favorite here. Let me actually pull this up. As I'm pulling up some artwork, what I wanted to talk about briefly here, because we'll react to the trailer. We'll probably talk about it again next Thursday night. We talked about this when the actual release was going down. Excuse me. The Mandalorian coming out of like all the big events this year was not getting the press. Like people were way more interested in Ahsoka, way more interested in like even some of the animated shows. And it feels like Mandalorian is coming out, dare I say, under the radar. I mean, that's probably not the right word, but it's certainly not gathering the kind of like hype after season 1 or where you expected when season 2 ended with Luke. You thought like season 3 would break the internet. And it's kind of coming in a little bit more, like, I don't know, I'm going to say under the radar. It's not quite generating as much conversation as you would think. I'll be very curious to see how this trailer lands because the first trailer, just to be honest, was fine. Like, it was very fine. And that's okay, by the way. Does not mean the show will be bad. We don't need the best trailers. They're hinting at some storylines that I find very exciting, specifically the return to Mandalore, because I am very excited to see how they represent the planet in real live action and where they could go with maybe establishing Mandalore as like a factor again, specifically because it's disconnected from the sequel trilogy. So you could really kind of have a little more creative freedom to tell stories on Mandalore where you don't have to worry about like, well, we're going to run into whatever. So I really want them to go that direction. I'm not sure they're bold enough to go. But what are you guys hoping to see from Mandalorian season 3, which is only 2 months away? It comes out in March. Yeah. I mean, what do you guys like? I'm not so worried about the trailer. If you want to talk about things you want to see, that's fine. I know trailers don't make a show, but like, what is your hope for Mandalorian season 3? Like, we all like the show, the first 2 seasons at different levels. I mean, what would be a good season 3 for you guys? Like,
my personal ask would be consistency because I've been critical of some of the episodes in the show in general, where I said it's a good show, but it can certainly aspire to be even more because when it reaches its absolute heights, it's great fun, man. It's just really, really great. So what I want to see across the board is consistency because, when you have something like Luke Skywalker coming in and say, drop the bars, like, training, your power without training is nothing. You're like, oh, that kind of hooks you in. But then we go to the Book of Boba Fett and you see Mandalorian 2.5 episodes there. And the next day is Luke like, goodbye, little baby. Just go back to Tatooine where like there's criminals and war and scumbags. I'm just going to take like this very, very jarring inconsistency. It really prevents me from like getting hyped for the show. I want it to be good. I want each and every episode to reach the heights of season 1 and 2. So when we watch it, it is consistently good.
I want to pull up. This was,
It's still a fire poster.
I love this poster. If I did check display because they had a textless version at one point with just him standing. Like a younger me, if I'd have seen that poster, would have like fainted. I'd have been like, oh, like it is such a great design. And what's funny though, because I agree with you, Ben. I said the same thing where I did not like that we got resolution on the Grogu Luke story arc in Book of Boba Fett. That being said, episode 5 of The Mandalorian or the Book of Boba Fett that was just focused on the Mandalorian was like probably my favorite live action Star Wars episode of all time. It was so good. In the end, he gets the Tatooine
make every episode this good, man.
I know. It's like, holy, like that is such a good episode. So on one hand, it's like, yeah, I hate that they resolved that storyline so quickly, but it's like, but man, episode 5 was so darn good. Like, it sucks me back in, it's like, I'm back. I can't wait. What about you, Jimmy? What's on your mind when you think of Mandalorian season 3?
I don't think I have anything.
Yeah.
It's just, and it is nothing bad, like I said, like Mandalorian is not really one of my favorite things. However, once it comes around, I will be obsessed with it. Natural. But it's just, I don't really know where it's going to go. And I think that's the better thing. It's that, my imagination is very restricted, clearly. So, what do you think is going to happen in season 3, bro? For all I know, Din could get a second head. All right.
I'm hoping, fingers crossed. It's like,
because, I don't know. They've been just hinting at Mandalore since the Clone Wars when we saw it, and then it got destroyed. We didn't know why. We still don't know why.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
It's just kind of going on, and I'm like, can we get to Mandalore already? Can we just get to it? Like, we've been teasing it for so long. I'm kind of aggravated that we haven't gotten there yet.
This was the episode 5 poster for the Book of Boba Fett. It's so good. It's such a good chat. I love it.
I guess if anything, I'm interested to see if we're going to see anyone from Rebels in it. Specifically,
to lead into the Ahsoka show, maybe.
Specifically Sabine, because that's the one missing link to make the Mandalorian make any sense when it comes specifically to the Darksaber. Because Sabine's the last one that had it, and now all of a sudden Bo-Katan is supposed to have it. Why?
Yeah. I like Sean's comment here, and it kind of aligns with what both of you said, which is the bond between Din and Grogu's best part of the show. I'd like to focus more on that and fewer cameos, which is true. Like, I feel like when you do focus on just their emotional connection, you get some really strong moments. It's a fair point.
Hey, we love R5.
We do. And yes, good call, Scott. Yeah, we also get Jedi Survivor in March. It's going to be so packed.
12 comics.
Oh my gosh.
It's a good thing I get to pick and choose those. The books, I got to read them.
The
novelization of the Jedi Survivor, right? Or
Battle Scars is coming out in March. Yeah.
I love this. I loved episode 5. Dallas Bryce Howard directed it. It was so good. The visuals were just insane. I absolutely love when they're dueling over. I have so many screenshots of that episode, like in my pictures folder, because like there's so many shots. It's like he's fighting the blade, and it's just, I love it. It's hitting all the things that like I wanted.
I loved when Master Chief came into the shot.
Yeah, it really was Halo. I mean, you basically were on a Halo. It was great. I love it.
Yeah.
Better than the Halo live action show.
I was just like, is that Halo?
It was. It was the best Halo live action show we've ever gotten. Right there.
I was ready to start driving a warthog off of it.
Oh, it was so good. And then it ends. It ends with just like this. They're like, oh, hey, remember the N1 like Tatooine fire? Like, we're just gonna revamp it and just have him go speeding down pod
which is
style.
Great because the N1 is one of the best ships ever made.
It is. It's such a good, like, it was just such a. It's like, I just remember after that episode, I was like,
because in the game Rogue Squadron for the N64, you could use the N1 in it, and I was like, yes, I can.
I mean, like, I remember like when that episode aired, I was like, oh my gosh, like we just went to 11 out of nowhere. It was just like, hey, by the way, we're gonna go hang out with the Mandalorian. It's just the best. Okay, thanks for watching. See you next week.
Said it was gonna be a great Lego set, and it was.
It was a great Lego set. Like this shot here, like this is the concept art they show. It's like, oh, it's such a cool shot.
Yeah.
And I love how they continue with the Mandalorians. Like they'll come in and save each other, but they also like cutthroat and ruthless with each other. I love
this
that
is a
part
really
of their
cool
culture.
shot too, because this is the concept art, right?
It is, yeah. It's the concept art.
Yeah, you can like. I love how you can see the scale of everything. Like if you look down in the bottom right hand corner, you can see like those tiny doorways.
Yeah.
So that is so far away,
Yeah,
but the building itself is massive. It's just
Yeah.
I love seeing stuff like that.
I do
You
too.
see the modern like Star Wars concept artist, and especially particularly David Yang, you know, they revere McQuarrie's work. Like they study it truly like the Bible, and they're able to infuse it with new energy and new ideas. But it's still like the visual language, like in every concept art you see from like the Book of Boba Fett, Mandalorian, you see the same language.
Yeah, Doug Chang and Ian McKay, you do. Oh.
Yeah. Well, I got to tell you guys, like going further in that episode, the more because I'm looking at, I have my folder of pictures of that episode. It's reminding me, like, it also opens up with him just like butchering some people, like literally in a meat packing plant,
and
just like cutting really, people in half. Was like
really took me out of the episode because at the time I was working at Walmart. So when we go into our meat coolers, we have those plastic. What are they called?
Like those curtains. Yeah, curtains. Yeah.
We have those plastic. I was like, oh, he's looking for something. Do you have any of this in the back?
It's just wild. It was such a great episode. And then they also have what the flashback to the Night of 1,000 Tears on episode, right? Where it's just like, oh, hey, here's them getting bombed. Don't they? It's the episode just gives you like all of it. It's like, hey, here's just everything.
Oh yeah, with the security droids.
Yeah, just like murdering people. Like, here's what you want. It's like it's so good. I love that episode. So when I see an episode of that quality, I'm like, oh my gosh. And I actually really like. There's a video on my channel. It's an older video before Jimmy and before we might even done the stream as this group. It's called like How the Mandalorian Season 2 like saved Star Wars for me. And I was one of those fans who like after, and I've talked about this before, like after The Rise of Skywalker, I was kind of checked out on Star Wars in particular because of the just the toxicity of being online. Like even though I really love The Force Awakens and the next two movies just didn't, you know, I didn't love them nearly as much. It just was such a negative space. I didn't really want to be involved with it anymore. I was kind of checked out. I never, as I've talked about, when Mandalorian Season 1 came out, I didn't finish it. I watched like the first four or five episodes and I was like, I don't care anymore. Like I'm done with Star Wars. I'm checked out. And then Season 2 came around. I was like, you know what? I was like, it's been about a year. Like, let me get back. Let me finish. Let me rewatch Season 1. Like, let me get ready for Season 2. And Season 2 came and I just had it was such a good time watching. The first episode, we have this sand dragon, Tusken people episode. You know, then we have this ice spider episode. And I was like, it felt like this really fun adventure series I was watching. You know, it wasn't so drama filled. It was just like a good watch. And then it ends with this really hype community moment where Luke returns. And when it was over, I was like, oh man, they sucked me back in. Like I had just a fun time being back in Star Wars. So I actually really fondly remember Season 2 of The Mandalorian. I think the only hesitancy I have is what are they going to do with the story? Like I need it to go somewhere. And by somewhere, I mean, like, I feel like we need to see our characters kind of get through their arcs. I don't want us to do side quests forever. I want us to give some really kind of defining moments for these characters and give Grogu and Din their kind of time to shine. And so that's my only, concern for the show is I just want to make, I hope it delivers. I hope it gives us something that is worthy of these characters. I hope we don't spend too much time just kind of floating, going nowhere, but we shall see. We shall see. We got quite some time before the show's over. Cause I know they're already writing Season 4. So this will not be the last season of the show. And I'm sure they'll tell some interesting tales over the next coming days. Let me go ahead and share one last shot from this that I loved. I have it up here. This shot here was like also just fantastic.
I've only got like one. Oh, that's a good.
Just such a good. There were just so many shots like that. We're just like, oh, the cinematographer was having a good old time.
Yeah, he's like, I'm winning something for this.
I'm winning something for this. Yeah, it was fantastic.
I've only got one little piece of news before we can wrap everything.
Yeah, tell me what's up.
We got a new comic that was announced today.
Oh yeah, do you have the artwork close by, Jimmy? I think you sent it.
I retweeted Kristen Baver's tweet about it. If you go to my page and find that retweet, it's got everything there.
Let me go real quick.
We got a new Darth Vader comic coming out. It's a nice new little mini series called Darth Vader: Red, White, and Black.
Let's see.
See if I can try to explain it while Josh takes his sweet time. It's a producer. It's a comic book about Darth Vader. in red, white, and black.
Yeah, the
Imperial
artwork.
regalia.
Yeah, I think so. Here, if you can get it pulled up, it'll be great.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
kind of very, very behind in the comic books. I don't know what it is, man. It's
Vader's gotten like 900 of them, so I'm not worried about catching up.
So my good friend, Mike at Genuine Chit Chat, he's like, he is head and shoulders in it, man. He's huge fan of the, canonical comic books. But for me, I told him, and he's like really trying to get me back into it. He said, when Charles Soule gets into it, he really fixes a lot of things. They were very hesitant in the beginning and early, like 2015 and 16, when I actually used to collect the physical books. Yeah. And he said, give it another chance, try this. And I said, partially I will get to it and I will read it because I'm a Star Wars fan through and through. But what kind of really broke it for me, and even in the latter stories are good, I just couldn't identify with the mainline series like Star Wars and Darth Vader and Dr. Aphra, where you remember how you say all the time, you say, Josh, you like when extra materials, extra content kind of like expands the stuff that we already know about Star Wars and makes adds to it.
Yeah,
it began to add so much and rewrite a lot of tense moments and meaningful, impactful scenes. Like when Luke meets Vader 25 times off screen before we get to The Empire Strikes Back, at one point you just give up. You become oversaturated with that kind of story. So it has nothing to do with its quality. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of talented artists. I interviewed one of the artists, and I'm sure they're doing great work on it. But I'm a little bit exhausted in the comic books. It's something I need to convince myself to go back in and say, like, okay, this is exciting again.
I feel the same way. Like, I love the craft. I love, like, I'm putting these covers up here. As you could tell, they're all in red, white, and black. And I absolutely love the art. This is a fantastic cover. I love this cover right here. This is so awesome. I love the panels. I love the fun that comics have. But one thing, and this is not just Star Wars. This is DC and Marvel, who I'm a huge fan of those properties. Like, they go so long, they go so many places that I have this hard time getting emotionally invested in the stories. And that makes it hard for me to like have to pick up all 1,000 of them because there's so many. Yeah, I much prefer comics that are like limited series. Go ahead, Jimmy.
I have the first issue of Darth Vader, and that's probably as far as I'm gonna get. Like, I like Darth Vader. He's just not that interesting of a character for me to want to read 900 issues of a comic that's been rebooted like 3 times now. I mean, and no hate to it, because again, Charles Soule is a phenomenal writer. And it's just like, how much more can you tell to the point where everyone's just like, Darth Vader needs his own series. You've got plenty.
Yeah, Vader fatigue a little bit.
Yep, it's true. And again, I love the craft, man. I love the look of them. I mean, some of those covers, like I almost enjoy the art of comics more than the actual like following all of the arcs these days. Like, man, I get a wall of those beautiful covers. I mean, that's such an awesome craft in itself.
I'll say this though, the new High Republic comics have been spot on.
I prefer the High Republic comics because I think it's unexplored territory. It's more fun to dive into than like, hey, what was Vader doing on Thursday? It's like, okay, man, like I don't like he's amazing. We love Vader.
Yeah,
I don't necessarily care.
If you haven't seen it yet, my review of the Blade issue 1 went up this morning.
Yep.
That comic was a blast.
Yeah. So I think that's where comics are their best spot. New characters, new eras.
And once again, written by Charles Soule.
Yeah. Detached. And it sounds like you guys know, don't get mad at me. I think comics are lower forms of canon, but that's a good thing. Like, I think Visions is not canon, and that gives it all the freedom and the fun in the world.
I'm like, pretty sure it not being canon is canon.
Exactly. Yeah. So
you don't have to think.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. So like comics, some of them are considered canon, and I'm like, that's to their detriment. Like, let comics go wild. Like, that should be an avenue where we can just like cut loose and be like, hey, what if Vader had General Grievous's arm? No, I'm just kidding. But like stuff like that is where the genre to me flourishes. It's like, yeah, let's have some fun. Like, let's go out there. But when you have to make it fit in this tight story of these first 3 films, it's like, man, you're so limited that it's challenging. So it's High Republic. Yeah, that's where they're fun. New era, new frontier, go out and cut some people up and be awesome doing it. Like, heck yeah. That's where I like it. All right, guys. That is the 3rd episode of Bad Batch. That's the upcoming Mandalorian trailer. I'm excited next week, not only to see where the Bad Batch goes from this really somber, weighty episode, but also, I mean, what does this Mando teaser look like? And also, how how the NFL games break. Playoffs start. Let's go Buffalo. Playoffs are starting here this weekend. So I'm very excited for this long. It's a holiday weekend for some folks. MLK Day on Monday. So if you get the day off, congratulations. If not,
I'll be at work.
Celebrate. Yeah. It's the federal holidays are interesting. Like some of them, everyone gets off. Some of them, no one gets off. It's always a guessing game. But if you do have a long weekend, I hope you enjoy it. I hope you look forward to returning next week to chat. Ben, Jimmy. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
No. Go ahead. What were you about to say?
I was going to say, Jimmy, Ben, anything else you want to talk about tonight before we wrap up?
There we go. I'm working on some new projects that are going to be coming out to the channel in the next couple of weeks, and probably going to be just a lengthy thing.
I'm back. Sorry. Disney called. I didn't go long enough. Sorry, guys. That's my fault.
Jim, did you just reveal the plot to season 3 of Mandalorian? What happened?
No, I was going to say, people have been asking us to do this for a while. So I started putting in some work today on something. I'll reveal this now for those of you watching in the stream. Everyone else, I guess, can just wait. Yeah. But we're going to finally start putting out some Legends books reviews, because I know a lot of people have been asking for it. We need to do it. So the first one we're going to be putting out probably on Monday or Sunday or Monday, if I had to guess when I'll have it done. Path of Destruction by Drew Karpyshyn. It's going to be the first one we do.
Yeah, I will be watching that one for sure.
So you don't watch my other videos? Is that what you're saying?
These days, I'll be frank, I don't watch a lot of stuff. I've been even slagging off on my own channel.
We forgive you.
Barely produce a video.
It's busy.
Jim,
I get it.
Jim, I will be checking out that video for good. If you'd like to make it also a topic of discussion, we can have a little segment in next week. I'd love to.
I would too. That'd be a lot of fun.
Sure, yeah. We can talk about the Bad Batch and then hop into some Legends talk. We can have a nice little cute banner for it.
That's nice.
Right. The banner that everyone hates that says Legends.
I like it.
I like it too. Thank you.
It's fun. I like it.
But yeah, so because I know a lot of people are asking for that, so we're gonna start putting out the fun ones first. Yeah, for sure.
It'll be very fun. Happy 2023. I hope everyone stays healthy. First of all, Jimmy's been sick. I was sick before that.
I already lost that one. So
yeah, Ben, you're next up. So you're third in a row here.
Yeah, don't spoil third season of Mandalorian if you have inside scoop. Okay.
Yeah, don't. So when Disney sells us, they give us the scripts early because they want us to proofread them. Sometimes we forget that not everyone gets a copy, and we just.
I was involved in one of the scripts on one of them.
No, I got mine.
No. We saw you in Andor. We saw you. You had an acting in Andor. Don't you remember that? That's where you had
funny. It was so funny.
It was. That was a good call by Jimmy. But thank you guys for being here. All jokes aside, we appreciate it so much. We're looking forward to what should be a really, really fun year. We appreciate you spending Thursday nights with us. Let us know down below what you're looking forward to this year. And, I know this stream time doesn't work for everyone. So we're open maybe sometime this year to doing a Saturday or some other day to spice it up. So feel free to let us know if other days are interesting for you, and we can see if we can make that happen once or twice at least this year.
You got a classic EU book you want us to review? Let us know.
That's right. Let us know.
I've got a bunch of them.
No, Jimmy's got them always collecting all the books.
Shadows of the Empire. I'd love that one.
I still have yet to get that book.
That's a 2023 goal, baby. Let's go.
That's the thing. I'm trying to get everything in hardcover as I can find it. Not the science fiction book club versions because I hate those. Yeah. So finding it's really hard.
It'll be so worth it when you get it, though. That'll be really
see, I've had many opportunities to get it. I just didn't have the money at the time.
Yeah. So, like I said, when you have all that Disney money, you're gonna be like,
when that Disney check finally comes through.
That's right. They said they sent it. I don't know. It's been 3 years now. I'm waiting.
I know.
So, right? Thank you guys, though, so much for being here. We'll see y'all again